moving forward, after my realization of how my dysfunction had ruled my being, I knew I had to give meaning to my life. I had to do something to help others heal. The life skills I had learned in my many careers and in overcoming my victimization had prepared me to make a difference. I have decided to become a victim's advocate. After the struggle of the last 3 years on the road to recovery, I believe I can be fearless in responding to any opportunity that comes along. A year ago, I saw an article in the paper about a woman who was walking from one end of the state to the other to bring awareness to sexual abuse. Her daughter had been abused as a child, but Oregon's statute of limitations had run out. The woman was angry and wanted to do something, anything to help her daughter. She was afraid of the retributions against her daughter, so she used a pseudonym and wore a wig and sunglasses. I got up that morning and drove to Albertson's parking lot where the walk was to start. I approached the woman, whom I'll call Meredith, and introduced myself. I told her I wanted to walk with her. And after Meredith got over her shock at my showing up, she gave me a bright yellow t-shirt, I was going to bring that tonight, that proclaimed "Stop Child Sex Abuse" in bold black lettering. One other woman was with her, and the three of us started walking through Ashland, sharing our stories along the way. People stopped us on the street to encourage us. Some proceeded to share their own stories. Although I didn't quite make it the full 10 miles that day, I did join Meredith on 2 more days of her 30-day hike. I was both grateful and surprised when cars and trucks honked encouragement as we walked along the highway. The overt support from construction and logging trucks was an even greater shock. It didn't seem like much of a commitment on my part, but it felt good to step out for the first time. Meredith later got a state representative to sponsor a bill before the Oregon State Legislature to extend the statute of limitations for civil action against child sexual abusers. Advocating for that extension, I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee along with 2 other members, 2 other victim survivors. Later that day, I found myself being televised on the 6 o'clock news in the city I'd lived most of my life. Over the next few weeks, I heard from people I hadn't talked to in years. Some were shocked, some just said, "Way to go." A few religious groups organized in opposition to the bill. Apparently, they felt it might increase their liability. On the day of the vote, one senator got up and gave an impassioned and courageous speech about the abuse she suffered as a child. She ended it by recounting how her cousin, who had also been abused, had committed suicide after years of prostitution. After a close vote, the bill passed and became law January 2010. A few months later, skipping there. Okay, going to move to a final poem here. Shed the Shame. Since I started speaking out, lots of people have been coming up and talking all secret like, some even whisper, telling me what happened in their family, to them, their husbands, or their sons. It occurs to me that it ain't okay in society to tell these things to nobody. We think people don't want to hear. And then there's the biggie, shame. If you or your child had a horrible disease, or you were hurt in an accident, you would have no fear of sharing. Neighbors would bring over a casserole. Empathy would flow freely. But nay, with sexual abuse of our children, we go inside, we close the windows and blinds, keep the secret. The shame of the abuser is worn by the victim. Perhaps it's time for release. Open the windows and doors. Tell the secret. Set the victim and their family free. Validate what happened to him or her. Tell them it is not, nor was it ever, their fault. We understand and honor them and their loss.